Today's episode, we're going to share some recent news in the JV Studios, the expansion to Southwest Michigan. Before we get into it, we want to thank everyone for just the positive feedback we receive, family, peers, fellow creatives. Everyone's just being super supportive about us being out in this area. It's definitely been a whirlwind because, we started JV in Chicago, right? In the Chicagoland area, but mainly in the heart of the city. So to expand, about 90 miles east has been a journey. It's really been a change of pace for us, I think, on a personal level as well as a business level. And today, so we just want to kind of shed why we chose Southwest Michigan over, any other spot. So John, did you ever see yourself living in Southwest Michigan?
Yes, actually. So when I was younger, I always wanted, one of the spots I wanted to live was actually South Haven, because my good buddy Mike Norris and his parents, they actually have a spot up there. We would always go up there, and they have 26 acres, and we're going through nature and going kayaking in the river and walks and taking golf carts. And I was just like, this, one day I want to be in this area. And then when I met my wife, we did a little vision boarding and dream building, and she said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And Michigan was on that list. But I would have not, I didn't know how I was going to get here or when I was going to get here. But then when the moment kind of presented itself, I took it. And so all of that actually got kickstarted because of your move and your decision. So, kind of run me through on how did you guys get out here?
Yeah, no, it's so I guess to kind of circle on all this is that, we've been running JV Studios. It's been years. We kind of built this name up in JV. People in Chicago, they know JV Studios. Not everyone, but, I think we got some street credit out there just being there and being consistent in that area. But I think for us, I think the pandemic definitely opened our eyes to a lot, and and I think everyone kind of went through this moment of working remotely and kind of feeling like, oh my God, I'm at home all the time. And then you kind of had so much time to really reflect, do I enjoy where I'm living? And to me, I was, again, just working all the time. I just felt like I had to work. And so originally we moved out of the city into Brookfield. So in this transition of working remotely out of Brookfield, Illinois, I felt like there was more. I'm like, I need and I was always this urban, I love the city energy, but my partner, she's kind of the polar opposite. She loves nature. She kind of grew up on some land and kind of having privacy. So as, being in a relationship and now being engaged, there's a lot of sacrifices that had to be made on my end just to think more than myself. And so what happened was, I remember, LA was never in my foresight. I think it's cool to go there and do projects, but it's super competitive. It's just a different lifestyle. And then you have, the New York scene, which is, similar, but it's very similar to Chicago. You're in this really urban, you're paying so much for rent. It feels small, but you're still in a really big community. And then I guess what came on the other side of that, we were pursuing possibly going to Nashville, and we visited and we loved it, because that's kind of I feel like a lot of creatives are flooding Nashville now. After New York and LA and Austin, Nashville is kind of becoming the artist hotspot. It just didn't feel right. And so I remember having those moments with my partner, and she was like, let's go try Michigan, right? And so JV was kind of number 2 in this spot, because I was like, I need to get kind of the personal life balance in check. And so we went out to New Buffalo, and I remember it was winter, and I was like, I can't live here. I need to be close to Chicago. That's where our work is. And then we go 20 miles south or east, not too sure on the directions. North. Thank you. And we find this little town called St. Joseph. And I remember just seeing the water, and it's Lake Michigan, right? Chicago has it. And I saw the water, and we saw a sunset. We were leaving, and we were like, wow, why does this feel it just feels different? It's not this huge urban spot. There's not even Uber out here, but it doesn't also feel like this super small community that there's nothing out here. There's civilization out here. There's things to do. And, I remember we went home and we just talked about it, right? And I remember I was talking to you, and I was like, how do we how are we going to do this if I move? You know, like, again, going back to like always living close to each other, it was like, oh my God. And like, what were your thoughts when 'cause I remember we were telling you guys about Nashville or Michigan. Well, originally it was Nashville, and you guys were like, you guys didn't feel it either, because it was like, man, that's really gonna drive. We're gonna have to figure some stuff out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, that Nashville, I mean, I think anything's possible, and no matter what you choose, there's always ways to figure it out. You know, you can't be scared about that. But it was definitely one of those things, like, you know, we were about to have a baby and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of just, Nashville's pretty far, you know? And so just like, for me, I was always like, well, what's the reason? You know, like, what's the reason? What are you guys looking for? And then when you guys said Michigan, or you actually just kind of pulled the trigger on it, it was like, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, you know, you go to Michigan and start figuring out, feel out the area, see if there's any way we can expand that way. And then I will hold down Chicago with our team, you know, with our contractors. And if there's meetings, I'll go to them and this and pick up gear. And that happened. And, you know, it was kind of, for me, it was a lot, because now Vinny was leaving. And so now I had to kind of do another job or pay someone extra to do it. So it was like an extra expense of like, hey, we got to pick up all this gear, and that's typically something I don't do, but now I'm doing it. And so definitely picking up a lot of slack there. But, you know, just, you know, we had a lot of shoots in Chicago, and then, you know, for me, I was like, all right, well, let's just see how this pans out. And so you just would drive down in the morning, do the shoot, and drive back. And I'm like, oh, look at that. Like, he just drove an hour and a half from Michigan to the shoot, over 70, maybe 90 miles. And I'm driving from Riverside to Chicago, and it's the same time. I'm stuck on 290 in all this traffic. And so, you know, for me, I was like, well, you know, what's more important, like being out in this area, you know, driving on this open road that's taking longer, or sitting in all this traffic? You know, it's like, for me, I was like starting to be like, well, it seems like it's working, you know, for you. And then that inspired.
Yeah, no, and I think like being in Chicago, and then like thinking about like, oh, I'm not close to the city anymore. Like, oh, like there's no work out in Michigan. Like, I was not sure if there's anything out here, if there's even a creative community. I was like, I'm gonna be like living off the grid at the time, what I thought it was, and all our clients are gonna not hire us anymore because we're not there. But then I was like, I just drive in. Like, if it's worth it that much to me, it's like there doesn't need to be this big, like, oh, you're in Michigan now, you can only do Michigan work. And, you know, and having a business, you have to think about it. It's like, where were your clients coming from? And the bulk of our clients are Chicago-based. So I was like, where can we go? Because obviously, you know, somewhere like Nashville, it's 7 hours, and anything else is even farther. So I was like, okay, I had to kind of weigh some options. But, you know, there were things outside of work, like personal balance and being around nature, which is my partner, like, she values a lot. And so I had to kind of really weigh that out. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this move for my partner and I to really get out there, be in a new environment. I think it's always healthy to kind of throw yourself in a new environment and adapt. And I will make it work. She can enjoy the nature and being away from the city and all the 5G and just technology and rush. And I will make the drive. That's a sacrifice I'll make because I want to be out here too. I was ready for a new adventure. I think we were just tapped from living in Chicago. Still love going there, still love visiting, eating there and doing gigs. But I hit my moment of like, I don't want to live in Chicago anymore, or in Illinois in general. But to be literally an hour and 20 away, like, you think, I was so getting caught up into it, and I realized it's not a big deal. I literally, like you said, it would take you an hour in traffic to go 20 miles, and it'd take me an hour and 20 minutes to go 90 miles just cruising.
Yeah, I remember texting you saying, hey, where are you at? And you're like, 15 minutes out. And I'm like, I just got home.
Yeah, on the way home from like a midday, like 5 o'clock shoot. So it was kind of like it waited. So then what ended up happening was, you know, it got real, because I was like, John's like, oh my God, like Vince is in Michigan. And then I remember being like, oh my God. A lot of our work was just Chicago. So I was coming in so much. And then there would be weekends where you guys would come down and visit, like, oh, what are you guys doing out here? You know, because like we were by the water, and it just seemed like, man, they're doing it. They're living a different lifestyle than we are in Chicago. Let's go check it out. And, you know, you guys came and visited us. And I feel like that was like the tipping point. And I was so happy because I was like, you guys were set on going to Colorado. We were. And that's when I was really like, oh my God, we're splitting up. Something like, there's no way we're gonna be able to do this business like how we did it. And man, it's like we're both in Southwest Michigan now, and it's just like we just kind of picked up and moved everything out here. And it's like and what's nice is that over those years, we built such a strong team that we can snap our fingers and have 15, 20 people on set if we needed to in Chicago. And now just being here, there is a big scene out in Michigan that we've met a lot of really talented creatives that actually have overlap with people in Chicago. So now you're like, wow, everyone's connected out here. A lot of people live in Michigan, just like people moving to Indiana, you know? It's like, there's work out here and there's a community, and it's been fun to kind of tap in and meet new people.
Yeah, well, I think the expansion is nice, and I think it's necessary, especially in any business. You know, in Chicago, we have a satellite office, and now we have a satellite office here in Michigan. So it's kind of like these two little home bases, and we're building out these teams. And yeah, I mean, I think the benefit to us and even our clients is it gives us a fresh perspective. It gives us the ability to leave the city and leave, you know, this hub, get away, recharge some batteries, get new perspective, talk to new people. And, you know, when you're based in Chicago, people in Chicago are Chicago people, you know, like it's the same kind of like energy, same style, but then you move somewhere else and it's a whole new culture, you know? And so it's like, just kind of like it's joining both of them. And I think it's been really helpful for our relationships with our clients, ourselves, and our families to like just take a moment to recharge. Because, you know, when we were in Chicago, we would go and do a gig downtown and then we would drive home and still be in it. But now we drive in, we do a gig downtown. We have an hour and a half to just decompress and just leave the work behind us. So then by the time we get home, you know, we have all that out of us and it's a clean slate. Okay, I'm home now.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I enjoy the most, and actually why I started a podcast, was that when I would drive in this past year to gigs, you know, I had an hour and a half to kill. So I just started listening to podcasts, you know, and I was like, man, I want people to listen, you know, like it'd be cool to have people listen to what we have to say if they want, and offer that. So I was like, instead of listening to some radio host that's just like talking about, you know, just these nonsense stories or commercials, I was like, I really got hard into podcasts. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna make a cup of coffee. I got an hour and a half. There's never any traffic, cruise control, get educated. I get on set and I'm like ready to roll. And everyone's like, man, you got like this fresh energy. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't been in Chicago in a while. I'm excited to be in Chicago versus like, oh, another gig in Chicago. You kind of take it for granted. But then like being out of it, I'll never forget when we did that one corporate event. We stayed right in the heart of right along the Chicago River in the Renaissance Hotel. And it was a 2-day shoot, or so we had a prep day and 2 shoot days. And then, so we had to stay in a hotel. It just made most sense. And it was like, it was exciting. It felt like we're on vacation. We're like, oh, dude, we're in Chicago because we've been so removed from it. So what did we do? We went out to a nice little restaurant. We got like ramen and had some drinks. And it was just like, man, it made us appreciate Chicago versus before. It was like, oh, I live here. And like, you know, it felt different. And then it also made us realize like, wow, it's good in doses, you know, like obviously Chicago, there's a lot going on and everyone's connected and knows people. But like you said, we would drive an hour and a half there and now we're driving like, you know, there and back together. It's like we have this time to kind of debrief and almost have a meeting in the road. And then once we get home, it's like you're with your family, I'm with mine. And you kind of like, all right, cool, it was a good day. It's like it's giving us a chance to really step back. And then once you get into Michigan, it's kind of like, all right, cool, let's back to regular programming. You kind of like on to the next gig.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been really awesome, and we're definitely. I'm happy that you inspired us to get out here. As soon as my little guy, I saw him at the beach, it was just game over, you know. And you know, so I think life's filled with stepping stones, and you know, this is another stepping stone. Will it be our forever place? I'm not too sure. You know, like what there could be a next spot, but until the puzzle, you know, gets complete, and you know, and trust me, there's a lot more lessons that we have in front of us and to learn. And so, you know, we look back at the last 10 years, and now it's like, okay, well, everything's now elevated to a different level, and so there's always going to be that growth and learning new things. And I don't know, I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, I am super excited. And now that, you know, it's taken me about a year, honestly. And I think sometimes it can take up to that time or even longer for like you to really get integrated into where you live. Like we came from this super hustling, bustling town, you know, Bridgeport and heart of the Chicago, to like a small town. Like there's no nightlife spots. All the bars are like restaurant bars. Like they're not just like a bar, and everything closes early. So like I remember that was the biggest shift coming out here. I was like, oh my God, everything closed like at 9 o'clock. Like, And not that we're huge partiers, but just like it's nice to grab play a game of pool. And like in the city, you realize how available everything is. And then you kind of come to a small town and you're like, yeah, it comes back to it, like refocus kind of like what's important to you. And, for me, I know nature was a big thing that like, we were feeling called to be with. And I kind of put, personal over work. And I think it always finds a way. Like I've met a really cool community. I never thought I'd be surfing in Lake Michigan in a wetsuit in 30-degree water or kiteboarding. Like I'm playing ice hockey now. Like there's so much more than just work that has came with moving to Southwest Michigan because you're a product of your environment. So like I understand why living in Chicago, we just didn't stop working because guess what? That's all people do in a city like that. I mean, it's just the environment is for people to work. I mean, you have skyscrapers of offices and people on the train and this, and everyone's going somewhere to work. But then you move to a small town and you talk to your neighbor who's just like, how you doing? And you're like, man, like everyone out here has a different look on how they enjoy life. And so a lot more people are active. There's access to hiking, there's dunes, there's beach. And for us, I was like, man, we're like living like a little fantasy world out here. And it's literally 90 minutes from Chicago.
Yeah. And I think it's all about the culture out here is very much, I'm done with work. I'm going to enjoy the day. Carpe diem, right? It's just about, it's like, not I'm this and now I'm going to sit on my iPad all day. And not to say that's what people always do in Chicago, but that's what we used to do. That's what I used to do in Chicago. But now it's like, I'm done with work and I'm going on a hike, like it's right here. It's accessible. I think people out here have a really good sense of work-life balance. And at least, if I'm sure, and actually, yes, people in Chicago also have great work-life balance, but I don't think that we were ready to understand it yet. I think coming here kind of pulled us out, and just like the new studio, going back full circle, now it's like we're in this town and it's full circle of like, okay, well, we figured out a lot of this business stuff. We have two now. We've worked a lot of the kinks out, and now it's like, okay, let's refocus now being adults and working on ourselves, because when you focus on yourself and you focus on the passion that you have, everything else follows suit. So if you can't be successful and then super unhappy in your personal life, or you can't be super happy in your personal life and super, depressed with your work. It's like, I think everything, like what we do is it's a lifestyle. So everything is intertwined. And, when you take care of yourself and your soul is happy, everything, it follows suit.
Well, yeah, self-care is huge. I mean, the last year and a half, I rarely did things for me. It was just like anything for I always had JV on my mind, but like we said in past episodes, like I was an athlete growing up. The second I touched my camera, obviously I still would do stuff, but I like stopped, I just stopped playing sports in general and kind of got more into the arts, which I think is super common. But like the inner athlete in me was like just shut down and closed. And anytime I had a chance to like do a quick game of volleyball or a pickup game of softball or something in the city, like I was like, man, this is like the fire came back in me, but I never stayed consistent. I never joined a league. I never did anything. Right. And, now things are completely different where like I almost, am playing too much, but I love it because I can balance it. And so when I'm doing all these fun things that I didn't normally do, it's like this inner athlete's roaring back in me. And now like me fulfilling that, personal care makes me excited to get back into work because I'm just like, yes, I can't wait to go kiteboarding after I edit this video. Like I'm looking forward to things now and things I didn't do when I was, when we were living in Chicago. But I think just to kind of recenter going back as a business, the expansion of JV, to Southwest Michigan, definitely it felt in alignment of kind of where we were with our personal life and work. I think a big thing for us is that we have a lot of clients in Chicago. So we're like, hey, where can we go that we can still drive in for a shoot? And it's like nothing changes because not every client has a budget to fly in, and then it just gets complicated, right? You got to fly in just you and have a team with all the gear, but we're making it work, and it's been so fun just to kind of come into a new town and almost like restart. That's like, yeah, you kind of have a name in Chicago, but out here, no one really knows you. So the rebuilding phase and setting up meetings with new people, it kind of humbles you to kind of like, oh my God, let's start trying to land some business. And so with that, John, I know you've had some experience even with just like meeting new people in this area and kind of like having to resell yourself. Like they don't know who we are.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was, a lot of our success and growth, it came from networking. And, my mom talking to Sue and Sue talking to Brian, Brian talking to Pete, Pete knows Jimmy over here, Jimmy hires us, and so out here, it's like, we have this business that we built in Chicago, and then we come here and we are just another person, and so, a couple of times I came in hot, like, oh, hey, but it's just the pace here is so slow. And so it's relationships over transactions in this town. And we learned that from our good friend, Ben Steven, who Vinny connected with. He's a kiteboarder and great real estate agent out here in Southwest Michigan. And so I don't know, the realness out here, I had to change my approach. And instead of trying to sell myself, I just made friends. I'm making friends with people. And then, as you get to know them, they say, oh, so like, what are you all about? Or, hey, let's be friends on Facebook, or let's, on Instagram. And then they're like, oh, wow, time out. This is your business? And it's like, oh yeah, we've been, building in Chicago, but now we're expanding out here. And it's like, oh wow, like we should set up a meeting and talk. And so now after, all these years of experience, what we've learned, now we're bringing it out here on a humble level and educating people that are in need of our service. And some people don't even really know they're in need of it yet, but it's not about the sell, it's about the relationship.
Right. No, you hit the nail on the head right there, because it is a different pace out here. I mean, Chicago, it's like, hey, how can I help you? How can you help me? And if there's no correlation, it's like, I don't have time, on to the next, and that's some people we've met in the past. But yeah, just like you said, like there's something about just treating people like human. And out here, it's been a relearning. It's kind of cool because it's kind of a new identity for us as a business. And so it's a chance to maybe things that didn't work in Chicago or things we learned from, how can we just skip all that and just start clean slate? And so, yeah, super grateful for some people we've met out here already. And just to see people, we know some people that operate cameras and produce that have worked with people that we hire in Chicago. And so there's definitely been some really cool full circle moments. And as, we just keep burying our feet in the ground and kind of staying consistent in our process. I agree with you. I'm excited to see what business we can bring out in Southwest and how we can start correlating or shooting for clients, shooting Chicago-based client work in Southwest Michigan where location doesn't matter, where we can shoot something on the beach because we have beaches out here or rent a house out here. So I'm excited to see the overlap of how there is a lot of openness, and a lot of people from the Midwest, in Chicago, they branch out. If you want to stay in that Midwest, people are going to Indiana or they're kind of going to Michigan. So I feel like we're not like out in left field. We're like, oh, no one lives there. A lot of our clients, chances are they have a lake house 20 minutes from us. So now you kind of bridge, most of them do, actually. You bridge a whole different relationship. They're like, I wish I could live out there, man. I love that area. So I think the moral of it is like, we're happy to be here. I think there's a lot of excitement in our life right now with just the mystery of what will happen.
Yeah, and shout out big time to all the team for JV and Bella that support us and they believe in us and they trust us to lead. We couldn't do it without them, and so it's really cool having these like trusted go-to people that it's not every day we have a shoot. So, but when we have a shoot, it's hey guys, we got to shoot in Chicago. You want to join on crew? And they're always so excited. They bring great energy to the table, and we couldn't do it without them. So if you guys are listening, thank you guys. We really appreciate you.
But yeah, no, as we start to wrap up, we just are super grateful, just to kind of keep the business running, expand it to locations, and honestly, at the end of the day, like continue learning. I think we're, as John said in previous episodes, we're friendly people. We're people, we're people persons. So like we just enjoy being around new energy. I think it's super healthy. And for those who are ever afraid that like, hey, I built a client base here, I cannot move, like it's possible. I think it takes time. You have to be patient. But I think if you build those consistent relationships and you establish that on a high level with a client, it doesn't matter where you live, they'll make it work, whether it's flying the budget. If a client likes you that much, they'll fly you in, Mm-hmm. And we're just happy to be close to family too, because I know our parents and your in-laws and my in-laws, they live back in south suburbs of Chicago. So to be able to do a day trip and see them, or have a gig and then maybe it's too late to drive home and be able to crash at one of their houses, it's a sweet treat, to be able to visit family, execute some work, and then we're kind of coming back. So overall, Southwest Michigan, we love you. And if anyone wants to come visit, we're out here.